For Martinique's islanders, the question of whether or not to seek greater autonomy from France is being seen as a defining moment. Our future is in our hands, this newspaper reads, and a high turnout is expected on Sunday. But many here will be voting to keep the status quo.
At my age, I don't need to vote at all, but I'm going to because I have children who live in France and want to come back here to live. Being French is what I've always known.
The influence of Paris can be seen everywhere in Martinique. The tourists who come here are mostly from France, and much of the island's industry is heavily subsidised. Economic patronage that's hard to turn down during a global recession. But discontent at the high cost of living and perceived social inequalities exploded here last year. With violent demonstrations throughout the French Caribbean, and particularly on Martinique's neighbouring island, Guadeloupe. Many of the underlying tensions stretch back to the region's colonial past, when plantations similar to this one, now a tourist attraction, were run by a small class of landowners living in luxury, while slaves worked in the sugarcane fields.
Walking around this house, you get a real sense of what colonial life must have been like on Martinique all those years ago. But as the island faces its referendum this weekend, there are some who say that some aspects of the modern reality of life here haven't really changed that much.
Most of Martinique's industry is still controlled by men like these, the predominantly white, originally French minority known as the Béquets, who don't like talking to the media.
Le colonialisme existe.
GARCIN MALSA is mayor of the southern town of Sainte, where he says there's growing support for moves towards independence from what he describes as the legacy of French imperialism.
Et en Martinique, le taux de chômage voisine 30%.
The level of unemployment here is approaching 30%. That's a form of colonialism that we denounce. And there's a class of Béquets that's very important. It's a small minority of 1% of the population that controls all the economic power.
As the race reaches its climax, even a yes vote wouldn't mean the island's on the road to independence yet. France says that's simply not going to happen. But for many Martinicans, whatever choice their island ultimately makes, the vote in itself is a sign of change in a region that's one of the last vestiges of European colonialism. Sebastian Walker, Al Jazeera, in Fort-de-France, Martinique.